Hello and welcome to Back on Track with Snowfall, episode 4, and the final mix. We have a final finished song, and this is nice. This is one of the two songs that I presented to you on week 1, thinking that this was going to be the first song to get finished. Hummingbird actually beat it by a couple of weeks, but this and Shades of Blue were the closest to finished when I started One Man and His Songs 6-8 weeks ago now. And here we are. I've gained a lot of information in that time, and Snowfall, I think, has benefited the most from it. Let's have a listen to it. This is the final song as it's going to get uploaded to SoundCloud in its entirety, and then we'll come back and see what I've done to get to this stage.
I do realize
So, what have I learned this time in terms of mastering that I didn't know when I did Hummingbird? Let's have a look. I think the headline development is tonal balance. This thing's pretty great. So you decide what style of music you want to aim towards, and it gives you an overall spectral view of what your song should generally sound like. It's obviously not written in stone. You don't have to be slavish to it, but it is really interesting. It's a fascinating thing to watch. So if we pick a part of the song that's quite dynamic, lots going on. So you can see as the song plays, it's listening and adjusting. This isn't doing anything to the sound. This is an analyzer. It's telling you that the song is pretty much, from a frequency perspective, it's okay. So I'm not outside of the guidelines on any part of the song. Now, when I first turned this thing on, you'll see it as the song finishes, it'll all settle down to nothing. When I first turned this thing on and played Snowfall through it, they were wildly out. I had much too much bass that was up here, and this high mid was way too low. And that told me that my ears might be slightly wrong, what I'm hearing, because we like bass, and so we overcompensate for it. And as I've pulled it back, I've taken a lot of bass sound out of this song, and I now prefer it. When I go back and listen to the reference track that I had when I first came up with a bass line, this is what I'm going to master against, there's a big difference between those two, for the better. So that was really useful. This high mid information is more intriguing. What's going on over here from 2K up to about 8 is pretty interesting. It's horrible. If you just listen to this on its own, it's horrible. So it's fascinating to me how little of audio, of music that we listen to, is actually above 2 kilohertz. See how quiet that is, and how tinny and horrible the whole sound is. It's all the tingly stuff. But it is completely essential. See the lag on my machine? Isotope is absolutely crippling my poor old PC. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And so I've tried to find places to bring more high mid into the music without impacting the overall mix. There are things that I brought in and thought, no, that just sounds tinny and horrible. I don't care where it sits on the graph. My ears are telling me that that's just plain wrong. But in other respects, some of the synth sounds, some of the guitar lines, I have boosted some of the frequencies above 2K to get it more in line with this guidance that I'm told to follow, and my ears are telling me that it now sounds better. So it's the combination of those two things together that are, I think, yielding a better result. And now when I go back and listen to the Hummingbird mix that I released a couple of weeks ago, it sounds overly bassy and a little bit dull in the top end, and it's interesting that my ears have adjusted so quickly to this new sound, to the extent that if I mixed Hummingbird again, it would be mixed differently, and I would certainly use this tonal balance tool. I think it's a pretty good one. In terms of Ozone itself, it's doing fairly gentle things. You can see this is one of the means by which I've very gently pulled the higher frequencies up a little bit. We've got this low end focus, which is interesting. I didn't use this on Hummingbird. Let's turn it up a bit. Listen to the clarity between the bass and the kick and all the low end stuff. Now I'll turn it off. See, it just got muddier. We like our magic buttons. That's a great one. So just a little bit of smooth. We've got the smooth setting with the heightened contrast, just separating those individual sounds out. It's doing frequency analysis on the bass and finding the individual instruments in the bass and just clarifying them. It's probably, I don't know, doing ducking and all sorts of fancy wizardry. Very nice indeed. Dynamic EQ, I've not done anything with this. This is still out of the box as Ozone gave me. The imager I have done a little bit on. So this is where we spread the stereo sound. After you've mixed the thing and got your pan settings as you want them to be, and it's all sounding great, then you put this imager on and see visually this is a visual representation of the stereo spectrum. And these sliders allow you to split the stereo up in some kind of weird dark magic voodoo. And so you just decide how wide you want the sound to be. And so, yeah, just fiddling around, listening to the song multiple times and playing with those sliders, and it just generates a nicer stereo separation. I don't know how it's doing these things. This is why it's such a great tool. And then the maximizer at the end, let it listen to the whole song, get your thresholds right. I'm tentatively moving towards understanding the whole LUFS thing, loudness units, full scale. It's the concept of listening to the whole song and making adjustments to the amplitude, to the limiter. This is effectively a limiter that's saying this is the volume you need to be for your -14 target if you want to upload this thing to Spotify, something like that. And so you just let it listen to the entire song, and over the course of it, it adjusts this value and says, there you go, that's the right volume now. Now you can output it. So that's pretty fantastic. I've still not dealt with any of this yet. That will be a new thing for me to learn on my next project. I can't change everything all at once. It would just confuse my ears, and I think everything would end up sounding like a mush. So there are still many respects in which I'm just leaving this tool alone and saying, well, whatever enhancements it brings to the process, by definition, they're improvements on what was there in the previous version, or they wouldn't be enhancements. I don't have to use every single tool in the toolbox. I can just understand the ones that I have seen and learned and read about, and then more will come in the future. So the low end focus has been a big win. That was great. The tonal balance control I've used a lot, starting to get that new visualization feature. Previously I'd used span. I've not got span set up at the moment, but if I just bring it in. So this is another way that you can analyze your music as it's playing and see if there are any really big holes. You see I'm still deficient in the, like, what's that, about 5k. There's a constant dip here. So that's something that in future mixes I could look to improving that. But generally speaking, that's visually the kind of curve that you want on your sound, and then you just make sure it still fits the ears. And I'm finding that tonal balance control is slightly more flexible than Span, because it's doing that analysis on the song and giving you that information that Span can do as well, but not quite as elegantly. And there we go, my second finished song. I think the production on this one sounds better than Hummingbird. I think I've improved. I've been cautious not to go too far. There's nothing that I've pushed too far. Even now, listening back to it just as I'm recording this video, I'm thinking perhaps the vocals are a little bit tinny. I might go in and just pull them down a little bit for the version that I upload. It's been a couple of days since I've listened to Snowfall, so that was interesting. And that's why it's valuable to have that reference work. That when I originally burned all of the VSTs to WAVs and said, right, this is my stage 1 mix, going back and listening to that helps me with that contrast of listening to the difference between the two. And I've got something to compare against. But all of these visual tools that I'm getting out of Isotope are great as well. So we're learning, we're getting there. Second complete project. I'll get this uploaded hopefully in the next couple of days, and on to the next project. I might go back to Shades of Blue. Actually, I've not touched that since week 1, and I'm anxious to pick that one up again. And we've got Evermore, a new song that I'm developing. Anyway, those are different songs for a different day. I hope you enjoyed this one. And if you want to see those new projects develop, then please consider subscribing, hit notifications, and then you'll find out when they come out. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.